Tatiana Ali, Alfonso Rubio, who is now, I believe, the host of this game show. It's like some fucking game show. I forget what it is. But anyway, let's go.
Look, man, we've been doing this greatest show of all time bracket. Look, last week we did Mad Men and Friends. I'm not trying to gloat or anything like that, but Addy put it out on his IG. We put it out on the Fade Podcast IG. Looks like Friends might take it with the audience at least. I don't know what Sergio's vote was, so we can't really call that one. That might be, you know what they say on election, too close to call. That might be too close to call right now. Okay, so we'll hold off on that a week. It's fine. At the end of this, we only have one more week to go as far as the first round goes. We'll announce what all the winners are, what round 2 is going to look like. Okay. Tonight, though, very exciting matchup. Very exciting matchup. We have in one corner the Fresh Prince himself, Bel-Air, the one, the only, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Of course, starring one Will Smith. And in the other corner, the grimy, the gritty, intense, The Wire. Ooh, what a matchup. Let me get a clap one time from everybody for the matchup. Come on, everybody. Come on, man. There you go. I got some trumpets. Why can't you ride with? I'm trying to hype the whole thing up. Why won't you hype?
Yeah, true. I should.
Jesus Christ.
I'm in battle mode. Okay, you're right.
I'm trying to give us some fucking push here, and you're like, no.
Listen, I'm in war mode. Okay, you're right. I should have rode with you on that one.
Like, if you can't get excited about it, how come everybody else get excited? Anyways, look. Let's play no games. Let's mince no words. Let's just get into the battle here. Our first category, as with every week thus far, we have 3 categories: acting, character development, overall story, and a wild card category. This tonight is going to be best episode of the series. Okay. And so we're going to go through one by one. How should we decide who goes first? Are we going to let Addy decide? Should we do a coin flip? Like, what's going to be? You went first the first week. I went first last week.
Let's let Addy decide.
Okay.
All right. Where's my mic at? There we go. All right. We're going to have Tunde go first.
Okay.
Only because you got to come out hot. Otherwise, you're probably going to lose again. I'm just being real.
Addy, you for one, we don't even know if I lost friends, right? Because we still need Sergio's vote. But then 2,
88% on my ID.
2,
so you got that.
2,
Listen, don't try to hype yourself up. He said what he said.
I work
with it. We got a show to do.
Extremely well under pressure. Let's don't try to add pressure as if I'm gonna fold. Boy, you don't know me.
You know what I'm
boy.
doing?
Open up the
I'm
show.
LeBron in Game 6 of the series. Okay,
you're like R.J. Smith when he went the other way.
First of all, it's J.R. Smith.
J.R.R.J. Whatever.
Whatever works for you.
We don't need to remember.
If that's how your facts roll tonight, I feel like I'm in for a good night. I'm in for a good night. Jesus, you still don't know.
See? Nobody knows. Let's go.
Good night for me. Anyways, okay. Let's roll with it. I need the bell. Ring me in. All right. That first category is acting. Okay. So where I'll start with the acting is that everybody on the show for The Wire does a fucking fantastic job. But really where I want to focus my attention, not only are there the actual actors for the show doing such a great job, right, with the show that, numerous awards that they're up for, yada, yada. The fact that like a third of their cast are Baltimore natives, aren't even actors, and they were still able to produce a convincing show, beyond words how fucking great that is. We have Snoop. Everybody knows who the fuck Snoop is, right? Felicia Snoop Pearson, right? Jay Landsman was in the series. Ed fucking Norris, who is actually a fucking cop in the series, right? Doesn't skip a beat. Now, you might say to yourself, well, that's fine, whatever, right? But the truth is, that's very uncommon for you to have non-actors act in an entire fucking TV show and have them be great. Here's an example. Now, I have to admit, I did find this on while I was doing my research on this. I did find this on Reddit, but it reminded me of a key point. The movie Boyhood which was, also sort of inspired by like, hey, realism, right? That had characters that were townspeople or whatever, and they sucked. Everybody noticed immediately that they sucked. So you can produce a work that has people who are supposed to be the real people, and for it to be terrible because they're not actually actors or actresses, right? What's so important and fucking mesmerizing about the series is that they do such an incredible job without having that background. It's like a third of the fucking people on The Wire who do this, which to me just tips the scales completely in favor of The Wire because of the nature of not only that everybody does a great job, that they were up for all these awards, but that a lot of the actors and actresses or some of the actors and actresses on the show weren't even actual actors or actresses.
Okay.
Coming out the blocks hot. How'd I look, Addy?
That was all right.
So this one we're talking about best actors, right? Let's go. Wait for the bell. So we're talking about best actors. I'm not even going to name the heavyweights so far, right? I'm just going to name a few people that you may know who appeared in this series over time. Tyra Banks. Let's talk about Nia Long. Right? Let's talk about DJ Jazzy Jeff. I mean, this show gave us two women that we both still, you had your favorite auntie. This show gave you two favorite aunties. We got two different Aunt Vivs throughout the show, which has resulted in a multi-decade long conversation about who's the better Aunt Viv, right? You got light-skinned Aunt Viv, you got dark-skinned Aunt Viv, you got Daphne Reed versus Janet Hubert, both powerful women who played essential roles throughout the course of this show, who gave you very, very, very different energies, stellar performances. Rarely have you ever seen this happen, where a cast member in a show gets replaced by another actor or actress, and they come in and they own the character in such a way that, like, you don't forget the other actor or actress, but you remember them. We got two Aunt Vivs from this show. We've got Hilary Banks, we've got Jeffrey the Butler, Tatiana Ali, Alfonso Rubio, who is now, I believe, the host of this game show. It's like some fucking game show. I forget what it is. But anyway, but he's still doing a lot of great things in Hollywood. But like, let's get to the heavyweights. Okay. First things first. Rest in peace, Uncle Phil. Okay. And when I talk about Uncle Phil, you know who the fuck I'm talking about. James Avery, stellar screen actor as well as stage play actor who played Philip Banks from 1990 to 1996. We all know and love Uncle Phil. Such a powerful presence. The father figure that, at this point in time in the early 90s, everybody wished they had. He was a lawyer, a prominent figure in the Bel-Air area community. He was who you wanted to be.
You didn't even get to your best one.
I didn't have to.
Yikes.
I forgot to mention Will Smith, but, I didn't have to.
Fair enough. And also, it's not about the best actor actress, right? It's about like who has the better acting overall, right? Like, unless I'm mistaking the category.
Yeah, listen, I didn't even have to get there.
And you just named. Okay, anyways.
All right, early on, Tunde, you got this.
Of course. Yeah, I know how this is going to turn out. Sure, I know how the end of this story is going to be. All right, I know what the end of the story is. All right, let's go to the character development. Okay. So if we're talking about character development, right? Look, you said it earlier in the show, arc, right? I love the story. I love the word arc, right? That's because every character, when you're talking about character development, has a story arc, right? What's interesting about The Wire is that it's kind of like an anthology, but it's not really, in that you stick with the same characters throughout the entirety of the show, but each season is a different thing altogether, right? That there might be a couple little storylines that pass along, but every character has a full story arc within each season, right? But that's not even where I even want to focus, right? Where I want to focus is how many different ways they approach their character developments, right? In terms of the story arcs. For one, they do, at least what I'm deeming as mirror story arcs, right? That they'll have two characters who have like opposing story arcs where you'll see one ascending or one descending. You'll see them, one character, being the protagonist while you have another being the antagonist, and they play off of each other even with an ensemble cast, which isn't, you don't see that too often. And it doesn't matter if one's the cop and one's the criminal, right? They play around with it so well. And the criminals and the cops tend to have like mirror story arcs, right? But what's really interesting in what they do with The Wire, some of the times the arcs are the inverse of what is like the typical cop and criminal trend, right? Where you might have the cop be the good person who's doing the good things, and you have the criminal doing the bad things. In The Wire, it's often inverse, where you'll have the criminal who's actually living by a code, and the cop who abandons the code at the first sight of any sort of trouble or panic, which is so interesting for a story. But what does that do? That makes it so realistic. It's a realistic thing that they're doing.
On time.
Are you kidding me? You didn't even.
You're over on time.
Addy, really?
Reclaiming my time.
Whatever.
I asked the jury to forget the last few words of Tunde.
This reeks of desperation.
Wait, is this a? Am I
No. Yeah, give him restart him, Addy.
Give me another bell.
Restart him.
So Will Smith character, Will Smith in the show, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Jesus Christ.
So obviously, you know, he's a teenager from West Philadelphia, where he was born and raised.
Are you gonna recite this?
Who gets shipped off by his mom to live a better life in the Bel-Air area, right? With his uncle, Philip Banks and Vivian Banks. And we see in the first season, we see this like kid who's essentially like out of place in his environment, right? Who is used to being from this rough area, who's not used to the lifestyle, the politics, and all the things that go into being and growing up in an area called, in an area like Bel-Air. However, this young man, we see him like adapt to his environment. Not only does he adapt, but he becomes more of himself, like the version of himself that like he was maybe truly intended to be. We see him become this young man who's now like ambitious, who has goals, who wants to go to college, who has escaped the environment that he was born into, and he's now thriving in the environment that he's been thrust into, right? So not only throughout the show do we get to watch Will Smith's character development, we get to watch him as a person and as a character grow throughout the show. We see how he impacts some of the characters around him, like his relationship with Carlton Banks, played by Alfonso Rubio. Carlton is just like a guy who's like, he's born to a rich family, he's used to this Bel-Air lifestyle, he is unaware of his of his privilege, and same thing with Hillary Banks, right? They're unaware of their privilege, and Phil and Will comes in, and he's able to like show them like just how privileged they are, and show them how like, you know, how the life that they live is not the norm, and how they should be thankful for it. And what you see throughout the show is everyone grows and develops from Will's experience as somewhat of an outsider moving into this Bel-Air neighborhood, and you really get to see all that growth happen for all the characters throughout the show.
You went over your time. But before we start this next segment, though, I will contest something, and you feel free to contest anything that I said as well. No, wait, hold on. Did you just play the bell again?
No.
Okay. Maybe I just heard it on the, I'm listening to the stream at the same time. Maybe I just heard that. The interesting thing about what you said is I don't know if he really changes the other characters, right? Like, sure, during some episodes, like there's a reflection there, but Carlton is still kind of Carlton by the end of the show, as is Hillary. Like, they're both kind of still vain people by the end of the show.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I think they're still very much privileged individuals, right?
Yeah.
But I think towards the end of the show, like I think Carlton goes through a lot of change where he becomes aware of his privilege, and he's like, you know what?
Like how so though?
So you know, we'll get to this in one of our next segments. But like,
okay. If you need to reveal it, then don't. Like I'd much rather discover that.
It is through Will that they go through certain experiences, like
sure.
Getting arrested, getting in trouble, getting like typecasted.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is these are events that happen, but it doesn't necessarily that's to me at least, and you might explain it when you explain in the next segment, but like that's not like an indication of change. That's just like a thing that happens. It's an event, but
it's the events in our lives that change us as people, right, and force us to grow or not grow.
Interesting you say that. I'm going to touch on that.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm going to touch on that. Okay. All right. So the next segment is a overall story, right? So look, I can go in so many fucking different directions with The Wire, but I'll just let The Wire speak for me. In that there are literal college courses taught on the plot, or not just the plot, but the overall story of The Wire, right? At Johns Hopkins, at Brown, at Harvard. It's literally courses taught on this show, right? The Washington Post explained, and I'll just read a quote here. The Washington Post explained why Harvard chose The Wire as a curriculum material for their course on urban inequality. And this is the quote from Harvard. Though scholars know the deindustrialization, crime, and prison, and the education systems are deeply intertwined, they must often give focused attention to just one topic in relative isolation at the expense of others. With the freedom of artistic expression, The Wire can be more creative. It can weave together the range of focus that the shape in the lives of urban poor. So in season 1 of The Wire, we talk about basically the Baltimore Police Department. In season 2 of The Wire, we talk about blue collar working class. In season 3, we talk about politics. Season 4, school system. And season 5, media. Above all else, the show demonstrates something that's genuinely unique in the television world. Change to people is possible, but change to systems aren't. After each season, no systemic change happens, and we're off to the next system to explore. To truly change one system, all of the systems have to change together. That is so fucking hard to demonstrate, and The Wire did it to a fucking T. Even scholars have to admit this so much that they're forced to put it in fucking curriculums. I don't know if there's really much more that I need to say. It's so beautifully illustrated in The Wire that it's
You're over on time here, sir.
Fair enough.
And that's the university, by the way, is phoenix.edu. You can log on today and start taking classes tomorrow.
Your time is running, my friend.
I didn't hear a bell. Listen, let's talk about the story of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Beautiful story, right? So it starts off in West Philadelphia, where this young man, Will Smith, he was born and raised on the playground where he spent most of his days. Just sitting back, maxing, relaxing, all cool, shooting some b-ball outside of the school. When a couple of guys, they were up to no good, started making trouble in his neighborhood. He got in one little fight, and his mom got scared, said, "You moving with your aunt and uncle out to Bel-Air," right?
Ugly
uncle. So, long story short, he landed in LA. He whistled for a cab. When it came near, the license plate was fresher than it was dice in the mirror. If anything, you could say that this cab is rare, and he thought, nah, forget it, man. Yo, home to Bel-Air, right? Beautiful story. This kid who's escaping, the trials and tribulations and struggles of, this impoverished neighborhood in West Philadelphia, and he gets thrust into this life with his extended family out in the Bel-Air area, where he gets a new chance, right? It's like a new breath of fresh air, a new opportunity, a chance to not necessarily become a new version of himself, but maybe who he was truly meant to be. And throughout the course of this show, we get a chance to see his character develop. We get a chance to see and how his character and him being there forces his extended family, his aunts, his uncles, and his cousins to realize a different perspective in and of themselves, right? To realize like their privilege and their environment, and like the struggles that someone who's not, from an affluent family in Bel-Air, someone who maybe comes from, an area in which they had to struggle a little bit more, like how, if they can overcome and they can achieve, how like we could do the same, right? So I think what you see overall throughout the course of the story with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is how someone can escape their situation and thrive to become better, and how individual people can impact the people around them and, not inspire everyone else to be better as well.
Dude.
Yeah.
You got a little more time? No?
That's
all
You're
just not going to use it? Okay. All right. Just pointing that out, that you didn't use all your time. Okay. Is that for me to go or for Dorian to stop?
I think that was for me to stop.
Okay.
Right. I'll give you an extra 5 seconds.
Yeah. All right, this next part is a wild card, which is best episode is what I chose for this week's wild card. Okay, the best episode of the series, at least to me for The Wire, is Middle Ground. Now, look, I can almost B-rabbit you, right? I can predict what you're going to say. It's going to be the episode where Will Smith, is his father comes to visit and he doesn't. He doesn't react well to Will and the way Will wants, and so he just like leaves and shit. I know you're going to say that, and that's a very flashy and emotional scene, right? That is going to be shown there, right? I don't know if it's the best episode. To me, a best episode of a show is an episode that basically encapsulates like the thesis for the show, right? It's just like, this is the best this show had to offer. This is what this show is about in essence. The episode that I'll refer to with The Wire is Middle Ground, season 3, episode 11. One of the greatest showings of subtext in anything, film or show. You have Stringer Bell, who all he really wanted all his life is just to be super successful and wants money, right? Wants that status symbol, right? You have Avon, right? They're both great friends, right? Best of friends. They've seen each other through this drug game through the entire time. Always had each other's back, no matter what, right? And you have Avon, who doesn't give a fuck about money, really. He just wants to be known as the top dog in terms of, look, nobody better fuck with me, right? What it teaches us is that in order to get what you want, what each of them wants, the same thing that united them eventually tears them apart. It's basically the thesis for the entire show. It's not our acts that needs to be changed. It's our core motivations. It's why our systems can't change, right? So you have them standing on a roof, and they're supposed to be best friends, but here they are plotting to fucking kill each other. And sure enough, Avon goes off to jail, or not kill each other, but one plans to kill the other plans to send the other to jail. Avon goes to jail. Stringer goes to, or is killed.
Not bad. You didn't. I won't hate on your thing, but when we talk about the best episode, so I know you alluded to the fact that I was going to go with the episode where Will Smith's father visits Bel-Air, and they have this very emotional moment. But you're actually wrong. That my favorite episode was in season 5. This was episode 15. So this was an episode where Will takes a bullet for Carlton, and they're like during an ATM robbery. So during Carlton's visit to see Will in the hospital, Carlton reveals the fact that he's like brought a gun with him, right? And he's now like started to carry this gun with him for protection. So, Will obviously becomes emotional. He had just been shot with a gun, and here you are, showing a gun in front of me, and I've been hurt with one, but you're saying that you need yours for protection. Very emotional moment, right? Yeah. So, Will is pleading with Carlton to like put the gun down. Like, violence begets violence, right? Like, you having a gun will only, beget someone to now test your gun with theirs, and it's going to lead down a road of very bad, dark decisions, right? So in that moment, I think Will says something along the lines like, he's pleading with Carlton, I saved your life, you owe me. And I think there's something, that whole moment was more than just that, right? I think it kind of like showed an arc of the show, right? Oh. Yeah, your word. Being that like, it wasn't necessarily Will, like in this moment, Will didn't save Carlton, right? Now, I mean, he saved him from the bullet, but like, it was his presence being there in Bel-Air that like, I think he saved this family, right? He saved the Banks family, and they also saved him in return. So it is this give and take of like, I've given you reason. I've given you like opportunity. I've given you purpose. You've given me the same thing. I've saved you. You saved me. We've saved each other. Let's not now like don't put me in a position where like now I have to deal with losing you, or you have to deal with losing me. So when we talk about character development, I think that's just it. We see Carlton and Will develop here, their relationship, their bond.
Your overtime, as you did with me, you put the tribute sign up. What is this?
Fair
Hunger
enough.
Games?
Fair enough. I volunteer myself for tribute.
So yeah, now it's just it's everybody else to decide what comes to. That was I like that back and forth. The two excellent shows. Like let this tournament mean nothing in the way of speaking about the shows in terms of like if they were good or not. All fucking fantastic shows, right? So when you talk about Fresh Prince, when you talk about The Wire, both and contrasting styles in terms of how they approach, making the show, but Jesus Christ, did they both have an impact on culture overall? So let's not take anything away from them. But yeah, we'll let everybody else decide sort of how it all works out. I feel very confident. I feel very thorough. But we'll see.
This might be one of those things where it's like, depending on where you grew up, you know what I mean? Like you know, if you grew up,
or if you've seen the show,
yeah, sure, definitely if you've seen the show. But if you grew up in like an environment like where where The Wire was filmed, right, in like these rough neighborhoods in Baltimore, a show like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air might have been like just a humorous escape from like your reality, right?
I mean, it was definitely like a humorous escape,
yeah.
Period. but
like if you let's say you grew up in like a more like affluent, like privileged neighborhood, you may watch a show like The Wire and be like, this is an escape from my reality because my reality is nothing like this.
That's a very interesting way of seeing it, because I see it as not necessarily the opposite, but like it's all encompassing. I see the Fresh Prince as all encompassing. If you were somebody who's broke, in Baltimore, you identify with the world because he was broke living in Philly, and then he got this come ups where he got to go live with his rich uncle, that's you can identify with that to a decent extent, not necessarily with his experience of living there, but with the idea of you're growing up rough and then all of a sudden you get this like fucking ticket to like fucking Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, so you can be like, you're already sort of identifying with him from that standpoint. And people who
of like that dream, like, I would love to have that happen to me. Right. Where it's like, I feel like the Philly version of Will would watch like Fresh Prince and be like, yo, that would be amazing to live that life, right? And then like the Bel-Air version of Will would watch The Wire and be like, man, that lifestyle would be crazy, No,
I don't, and it's not that I don't see that. What I guess what I'm saying is like, for the people who are affluent who are watching The Wire, I think it's a piercing of the veil, meaning that like it actually is the world in a way that. Here are these systems, right? The police, the fucking justice system, the education system, right? Here are all these things that you're just taking as pillars of society, and then you're seeing the fucking griminess that is the politics, right? You're seeing the griminess, everything that goes into. That's one of the most interesting parts that I don't really hear people talking about at the back end of The Wire is how fucking politics affects everything, and it's like the fucking it's the Oz, in behind the curtain, right? But nobody really talks about it.
And one of the interesting things about The Wire is like when people watch it, it's funny how many people have different takes on it or different perspectives. Like I've met people who have watched The Wire and thought it was like fiction, like all of it was fiction. Now, granted, the characters and like some of the storylines.
Who have you met that thought The Wire, or at least it's clearly like it's fictional in the sense that it's a fucking show on TV. But like it goes through great lengths to make it as realistic as possible.
Fictional in the sense of like Game of Thrones is fictional, right? Whereas
what is that? Who? I need to know the name.
So I remember I was in Portland, Oregon at the airport, and my flight was in like an hour and 15 minutes or whatever.
Well, so you started off in Portland, so I already know where this
I was at the bar and I was like talking to this white woman, and she was traveling back to the East Coast. I think she was from like Massachusetts or Connecticut, one of them.
Natural.
And we were talking. We just happened to be talking about. What's her name?
Was her name Karen?
Probably. It was either Karen or Kate.
One of the two.
So I remember she was talking like, we were talking about shows and whatnot. Like what, because I think on the flight they were showing a movie and they had like different channels.
Yeah.
So we were talking about like shows and movies. And I think at this time is when I started watching. No, this was before I'd started watching The Wire. But I told her I was from Baltimore and she was like, oh, have you ever seen The Wire? I was like, no, I actually haven't yet. Because at this time I hadn't. And she was like, oh yeah, I just like finished season 1 and I just think like such like a gritty, grimy show, and like how do they like think up all of these different things, because like there's no way it could ever be like she was talking about the show in a way in which it was like entirely made up and fabricated. Like this couldn't possibly be real. And I'm like, and I was telling her I live in Baltimore, and like there are a lot of neighborhoods in Baltimore. Like this neighborhood this show was like filmed in a lot of those Cherry Hill and West Side, East Side Baltimore. I'm like, lady, this shit is very real. Like these aren't necessarily just characters in show. Like these are characters based on real people. Just like as much as Friends was based off of like real people, the characters in The Wire were based off of real people too.
Well, I would say that she's kind of the exception, not the rule, only because for one, that's like the one thing with The Wire. It's why people have The Wire synonymous with Baltimore, right? Is that everybody thinks, oh, that's Baltimore all day, every day, right? Is that what's going on?
But that's not the first time I've had that conversation. So
fair enough. So like I also like so my girlfriend, her background is in education, right? And she comes from a more middle class, maybe higher.
You better
edit
out that pause.
Yeah, I know, right? But no, I was trying to do it justice in terms of like I'm not trying to get that wrong. But I will say that when she was talking about like The Wire, it was from the perspective of like, oh, for sure. Like the education system is, you know, this way because that was like her experience, even though she had experienced like a life that wasn't The Wire at all. Right. But I feel like people who even have like a vague sense of either the educational system, political system, what else, whether they have had not skirmishes, but like interactions with like police and things like that.
Political,
I feel like
policing, education,
like
all of that.
All of that. I feel like people see enough realism into it to be like, oh, okay, I see what this show is. Like it's not deteriorate, like it's not so detached from reality. It's actually super realistic, but this is like a whole nother, you see, and it's kind of what I was saying in my overall thing, which is none of the systems, and I was talking about this earlier with her today, is that looking at them individually, it's so easy to be like, oh, this is what we need to do to fix this. This is what we need to do to fix that. But the problem is that you can't fucking fix any of them alone, right? Yeah. That if you try to fix one of the systems, all the other systems that already have all this fucking history behind it that's caked into it will not allow that system to be
you try
better.
to fix education, the political system, and like
will push back against that change. The judicial
system will push back.
Absolutely.
You try to fix the other one.
You have to change the entire thing. And what's beautifully dark about the series is that you watch it and you're like, oh, people are trying to come up with these solutions, and then all you see is like somebody come through and like, we're going to slash your budget, or that program that you're talking, fuck that budget, you know. Or
and I will say throughout The Wire, like even the kids who end up going down the wrong road, like you kind of just get it. You're just like,
I see it.
They had no other choice.
I see it.
But either way, you know, vote Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when you cast your votes on the Fade Podcast Instagram page, my Instagram page, Addie's Tune Days, wherever you vote. Vote Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I'll throw it up, but I wanted to add a quick tidbit to that whole The Wire story with so I listened to 105.7 FM Sports Talk, whatever, and you know, Ed Norris is one of the hosts on there in the morning show.
He's literally an actor on the show.
Yeah, he was literally an actor. So he actually was given a interesting story about all this, and he was saying that like I forgot what the term for it was, but it was something along the lines of like, I don't know, danger tourism or something, where it's actually an entire industry of really like suburban like students wanting to come to Baltimore to live specifically because of The Wire, to see if it actually is as The Wire describes it.
That's crazy.
Which I just insane. Like, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like, we have gentrification because people want to experience The Wire.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Which ends up, you know, in a weird way, changing the aspect of The Wire, right? Like that right. Baltimore is a predominantly black city, and then you have this influx of people who, black and poor, but you have this influx of people who aren't that, who then change the fabric of what Baltimore is. Ironic in a major sense, but that just is a testament to what The Wire is. I don't know. There's almost nothing after, like, I must admit, watching The Wire, and I promise we'll get out of here.
You're selling this.
I'm not. I'll cut the thing off for this, like in terms of the voting and stuff. You can keep it. But the thing that I find most interesting about The Wire, at first, like I was watching like the first couple seasons, and I didn't really like. I was like, why is this show? Why does everybody consider the show to be one of the best shows ever? But as you continue to watch, you see how everything, it's like a fucking puzzle that you keep finding different pieces for you. And you're just like, by the end of it, you're like, oh shit, like this is like a complete story. Like this isn't just like, oh, this one season we're doing this and the other season we're doing something completely different because of fuck it, you know? No, it all, you see the fucking intertwinings of it so much so, and it's so realistic, so that you get people who are like, I'm going to Baltimore to see if that's really what it's like in Baltimore. That's fucking crazy to me.
I will say that is wild. I hadn't heard of that, Addy, so thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, I mean, great show. I think they're both great shows, Fresh Prince or The Wire, whichever one you prefer. Just vote. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
For sure. No matter who you vote for, vote for The Wire. But vote nonetheless, even if your pick isn't The Wire, but vote The Wire.